everyone. Welcome back to the program. And today, for today's podcast, we are diving deep into the internal world of Wing Chun. And with my little script here that I've prepared so I don't go and make too many mistakes, we're into a realm where physical strength is traded for mental intent and skeletal alignment. And our guest here today is a man who didn't just study the art, he lived it at the source. And we have Sifu John Kaufman, who spent a long time in Hong Kong training under the legendary King of Sui Nim Tao, who was also my Sigung, Grandmaster Chu Shong Tin. But before he became a pillar of the Chu Shong Tin lineage, John, if my sources are correct, which I'm sure he'll correct, John was a seeker researching various martial arts and looking for a piece that eventually led him across the world. And today we're going to discuss his personal journey, the science of Nim Lik, or mind power, and what it was really like to stand side by side with a master for so many years. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here too. We've talked many times before, and I sort of look at you a bit as like a mentor as well, because I've broken your balls many times in the past. If I've had any questions about certain techniques and stuff, I've traded some information with you and hassled you a few times. So I'm very happy. I'm glad I've asked you questions, and you've always been very generous with your information. And so I thought, I'd get this podcast up and running and ask you a series of questions, which I prepared. So the first question I wanted to ask you was, before you arrived in Hong Kong, I believe, if my information and what I've researched, you were already into martial arts. So what styles were you practicing? What was the specific missing piece you felt was absent from your training?
Okay. The only martial art I've ever trained in and practiced and I now have been teaching for, 28 years is Wing Chun.
All right.
I had never studied or trained in anything but Wing Chun. I started, I'll just briefly go over my background. I won't waste a lot of time in the details. You're free to interrupt and ask any question you want. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
But I started at Wing Chun in New York City in 1977.
Oh, wow.
My Sifu was Li Moi-san, who also known as Douglas Lee. He was a student of Mo-Yat in Hong Kong and then in New York. Mo-Yat was, perhaps people are aware, Mo-Yat was a student of Ip Man in Hong Kong.
Right.
And after Ip Man passed away in 1972, Mo-Yat moved to New York in the early to mid 70s. And Li Moi-san trained with him. So I started at that school in Manhattan in September of 77. And I trained there for 2 years. And then I left New York to take a teaching position in the Boston area. And at that point, I trained in a non-Ip Man lineage, what is commonly referred to as Guo Lo or Pian Sin Wing Chun. And I trained there for about 2 years. And then I didn't do any Wing Chun at all because I went to law school and I got married. I went to law school. And after law school, I moved to Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires. It's a small area. I started practicing law. There was no Wing Chun there. And about 15 years went by. And I was sitting in court one day and I saw an ad in the local paper for Wing Chun classes. So I went, wow, Wing Chun here? I'm going to do that again. So I did. And that was in the Ip Ching lineage.
All
my
right.
teacher, my teachers at that time, the guy who was running the school, this was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts in the Berkshires. My teacher was a student of a man named Russell Sichon from Albany, New York. And Russell trained personally with Ip Ching, who, as I'm sure you're well aware, Ip Ching, who's passed away a few years ago, was Ip Man's second son. After Ip Chun, Ip Ching. And so I started training in that lineage. And after about a year and a half, approximately, I don't remember exactly, my teacher said he didn't want to do it anymore. And he asked me if I wanted to take over the school. And I said, yeah, because I knew that I was pretty lazy. And if I didn't teach, I probably wouldn't practice. So I started teaching in the basement of my house, and just for a few months. And then they had the first Wing Chun, I'm sorry, they had the opening of the Wing Chun Museum in Dayton, Ohio, which was arranged and put together by Benny Meng, who had been a student of different Wing Chun Sifus, but
Sorry.
mostly with Moya. Yeah, no problem. so, so anyway, I went out to Ohio to attend the opening of the museum, and I was nobody. I didn't know anybody, and but I wanted to go, so I flew out there, and I'm sitting in a Chinese restaurant where we were supposed to congregate, and I'm sitting in a booth, and there's a couple of people who were students of Benny Meng sitting across from me, and there's me, and then an empty seat next to me, and this man walks by, this white guy. And you got anybody sitting here? And I said, no. He sits down, and we had a conversation like you do. You know, you do Wing Chun, who is your Sifu, blah, 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 right? And he explained that he lived in Duluth, Minnesota. He hadn't left Duluth in 18 years.
All right.
This was 1998. So he hadn't left Duluth since
Did you say 1998 or 88?
No, 98.
98, okay.
This was 1998, where they had the opening of the museum.
Okay.
And people came from all over to attend the opening. Like there were a lot of big muckety mucks in the Wing Chun world that were there. People like Ip Chun and Ip Ching and Hawkins Chung and Mak Po and a few other notables, including Chu Shong Tin. I didn't know anything about Chu Shong Tin. I'd never even heard of him before that. Okay.
Right.
So I meet this man, and the guy's name is Marty Anderson. And that's very important, as you're going to see it later on in this conversation.
We've spoken about him. Yes.
Okay. But for your viewers, they might not know this history. So I'm briefly including it. So so I meet this guy named Marty, and he explains to me he hadn't done any Wing Chun in 18 years. He only came to Ohio to see his old Sifu, Chu Shong Tin. So I go, okay. So then it turns out we're staying in the same hotel. So he invites me back to his room to do a little practice. So I said, sure. So I go, and he says to me, I told him, I was training for the last couple of years in the Ip Ching lineage. And okay, can I see your Sui Nim Tao form? So I did that. And I thought I was pretty good. I knew what I was doing. And then, he said, what's this? So I'm thinking to myself, well, this guy doesn't know anything. I mean, any Wing Chun person knows this is Huan Sao. So I explained to him, well, this is Huan Sao. It means circling hand. He goes, oh, what's it for? Then I think to myself, oh, of course, this guy really doesn't know anything. And I go, well, it's to redirect something that's coming in so you can create an opening to strike through. He goes, okay, do it. So he takes his hand and he slowly moves it toward me like this. And I go like this, and I can't move him. So now he looks at me, he goes, John, if you're already in contact with someone, you might be able to do it that way with their ongoing motion. But if you're not, you really got to put something into it. I went, oh, okay. So then, I find out later, this is what he does. He did a series of demonstrations, simple things. He brought a focus mitt, you put on your hand, and he had me hold it. He held it on the side like this, and he told me to punch it as hard as I could. So I did. I punched it, and okay, I hit the pad, but that's it. Nothing happened, right? And he goes, okay, my turn. So I hold the pad in my hand, and he puts his palm like here, probably about 8 inches away. And he just goes bang. And the thing flies right out of my hand and like a bullet and smacks into the wall across the room. It's like, whoa, okay. And then he did a couple of other things, which I can describe, but not necessary. But his power was amazing. He really impressed me. So then we started to do some chi sao. As soon as we started to roll, he's moving like a buzzsaw. I can't do anything. I can't even stand. I'm being thrown around like a rag doll, and his fists are always in my face. He didn't hit me. But I've never, ever had anyone do that to me before in Wing Chun. Not even close. So I was flabbergasted. Whoa, I don't remember what I said, but I was impressed. And he looked at me, he goes, if you think I can do anything, you should see Chu Shong Tin. I'm nothing compared to him. I went, okay. I don't know anything about Chu Shong Tin. So I was so excited by feeling in those moments what Wing Chun could be that I didn't care about the opening of the museum anymore that weekend. I just wanted to spend time with this guy, okay? And I called him up at 6 a.m. the next day. Wow. And I said, come on, let's train. Okay? So I spent the weekend. He shared with me what Chu Shong Tin's method consisted of, at least as much as he could share a little bit over the 2-day weekend. So then I went back home to Western Mass after that weekend, and he went back to Duluth. But I decided this is what I wanted to learn.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Why wouldn't I?
But are you saying to me that
yes.
in that 2-day weekend, you did spend time with Sigung, right?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't even meet him.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, sorry, I got confused. Okay. All right.
Okay, no. He was in the room where people would give lectures and demonstrations.
Okay.
But I never spoke to him. I didn't even meet him.
Okay. I think there's some footage on that. I think there's some footage of that event. Of that event in 1998.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are videos that people made of various things that took place during that weekend at the opening of the Wing Chun Museum in Dayton, Ohio. So. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, so I go back to Massachusetts, and then I decided, this is what I want to learn. So I didn't pursue the Ip Ching stuff anymore.
Right.
And so I tried my best to practice the way Marty was sharing with me just in that one weekend. And I would call him on the phone and talk to him a lot, but I didn't see him again. And about a year went by. And then I found out that they were going to have the first World Wing Chun Conference in Hong Kong in the fall of 1999. And I wanted to go. So I called up Marty. Oh, you want to go to this with me in Hong Kong? He goes, no. I go, come on, I've never been there. Because I forgot to mention, Marty trained with Chu Shong Tin from 1970 to 1980 in Hong Kong.
Far out.
Marty was his first non-Chinese student. Very first one.
Right.
When Marty first went to Hong Kong in 1970, Ip Man was still alive. And Chu Shong Tin went to him and asked his permission if he could teach Marty, because Marty was Guai Lo, non-Chinese. Obviously, permission was granted. And so Marty started training with Chu Shong Tin at his school for that decade.
He's not the guy that's in the photo with Grandmaster Yip, man, by any chance? There's a rare photo. There's a rare photo of a non-Chinese with Grandmaster Yip, man. That's it's a very old photo.
I don't know the photo, but I doubt that that's the case. Although he did meet Ip Man,
right,
and he knew all of those guys. He knew all those guys that people now look at as quote unquote Wing Chun gods. Wang Sheng Long, Lok Yu, all those guys, Long Sheng. Marty knew all those guys. Okay. Because they would sometimes come and hang out at Chu Shong Tin's school. They'd play mahjong. It'd be like social occasions. Cool. And so Marty met and touched hands with several of those people. Okay. Anyway, so Marty had trained with what he would do was he would go to Hong Kong. Okay. He would train there every day the school was open, which was like 5 nights a week. like whatever, 6 hours a night. If the school was open, Marty was there training, um, and until he ran out of money, and then he'd go back to the U.S., save up more money, and go back to Hong Kong. That's what he did for 10 years. Okay,
Wow.
um, Marty could already fight. Marty didn't need Wing Chun to fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marty had Marty was in special forces in the Vietnam War.
Okay.
Marty could already fight, and he had the mentality of a fighter.
Right.
But and I'm telling you a lot about Marty, and the reason why is because I would say at least 75 to 80% of my Wing Chun comes from Marty Anderson.
Okay.
Everything I'm going to explain about my Wing Chun and what I think is important, the method that's involved and how to do it, and in answer to the questions that you want to ask me, the credit is like 80% to Marty Anderson. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So that's why I'm telling you about him. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
So over the 10-year period, he explained to me that he probably spent about 2.5 years training at Chu Shong Tins over that 10-year period.
Right.
Okay. So
which is quite a lot.
Okay.
Which is quite a lot.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who spent decades training at Chu Shong Tins. I know a lot of guys that spent decades training at Chu Shong Tins on a regular basis. So 2.5 years is not very much compared to a lot of other of his loyal students. But I got to tell you, no, anybody can say anything about their teacher, and everybody wants to think their teacher's great and all the rest of it. All I can do is tell you information based on my own personal opinion, based on my experience and how I view these things. Okay.
Sure.
I don't know anyone who's as good as Marty at Wing Chun. I don't know anyone. I know a lot of people that are really good, especially that I've been living and teaching in Hong Kong for the last 14 years. I meet a lot of people from all kinds of lineages. And I know a lot of people who are really good. I know no one that's better than Marty. And so anyway, I talked him into going to Hong Kong with me in the fall. It was October or November of 99 to attend the first World Wing Chun Conference. And that's when I went to Chu Shong Tin's school and started training there. I could train there because Marty had been his student, and because another guy who helped organize the whole conference, named Kaufman.Yip, who's a lovely Chinese man from Hong Kong, but he had lived when he was younger in New York for a period of time and trained at the school I started in New York under Lineage, even though he didn't train there the same time I was there. Right. So through those two connections, and Buick was a longtime student of Chu Shong Tin. So through those two connections, I could go to Chu Shong Tin's and train. Okay. So that's what I would do. And I would go there every year for a couple of weeks. When I was there, I would train there. Sometimes I'd miss a year, but more often than not, I would go. And I would then continue to teach using this method as best I could back in the U.S. And I did that from 99 to 2007. And then in December of 2007, I decided to spend more time in Hong Kong. And so I went to Hong Kong for 5 months. Right. Well, at that time, Chu Shong Tin had changed his method of teaching. I'm sure people who are familiar with him know this. None of this is new information. He decided for various reasons to concentrate with his students, mostly doing Zamzong training, standing meditation, you know? And instead of doing the forms, instead of doing Chi Sao, it would by and large just be standing meditation. And he had his reasons for that, which we can go into if you want me to, but that's what he was doing. So I went there, and the first night or two I was there, I would go there to train, and that's what everybody's doing. So I'm trying to do it. So I'm standing there trying to do it, and I had a bad knee. My knee was killing me. It was just killing me, very painful. It didn't matter in the US because I drove everywhere. But in Hong Kong, I'm walking around, I'm a tourist, okay? And my knee was killing me. So I couldn't do it. I mean, every 5 minutes I have to sit down and rub my knee, and it's like nuts. And everybody's standing there for a long time, and I can't do it. So I decided, you know what? I'll go and start to train with Ma Ki Fai at the VTAA, the Wing Chun Athletic Association in Prince Edward in Kowloon, and not that far from Chu Shong Tin School. And I decided to train with Ma Ki Fai, who was a longtime student of Chu Shong Tin. Because I had met him at Chu Shong Tin School, I knew he taught at the VTAA like 3 afternoons a week. And I could do everything there. I could, it wasn't limited. I could do Sui Nim Tao and the other forms. I could do Chi Sao. I could do whatever I wanted. So I started training there. The first day I was there, I was Chi Sang with somebody, and I mentioned that my knee was hurting, and he goes, "Well, maybe you should try this this electric machine that sends electrical signals through your muscles that might help you." I go, maybe. Where could I buy one? And he goes, ask Sifu Ma, maybe he knows. So I did. And Sifu Ma says, "You got a bad knee?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, go see that guy. And he points to a man across the room named Peter Wong. Okay. Peter Wong was a student of Chu Shong Tin, but he used to go to Sifu Ma's classes too, just to kind of share and to, hang out. And so when I told him that Sifu Ma recommended I speak to him about my bad knee, it turns out this guy was like a Chinese bone setter. So he sat me down in a chair and he manipulated my knee, and long story short, he fixed it. Bang! Really? I'm all better. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Now, yeah, I could, because I was all better, I could have gone back to Chu Shong Tin's, but I was only going to be there for 5 months. And I didn't think that would do me a lot of good just standing there. Not that I thought it wouldn't be valuable what he was teaching, but I thought you'd have to do it for a lot longer than 5 months to get a real benefit from it. Mm. So I decided to stay with Ma Ki Fai, and that's what I did. And so I did that for 5 months, then I went back to the US. And then a couple of times after that, I decided to move to Hong Kong. The first time was like 10 months. The second time was like 4 months. But I kept going back. And when I would do that, I would train with Ma Ki Fai at the VTAA.
Sorry if I interrupt, but I think it was 2007. Sorry if I interrupt, but 2007, 2008. I can't remember the year. I went there with my wife, and I met Sigung, and I had to go. I was supposed to go to dinner with him and Sijo Leung Ting, and I couldn't attend dinner. So they fixed me up. I was able to go see him the next day or the following day, and I was really happy that he remembered me because I'd met him in Australia a couple of times, and that's what they were doing. They were doing the standing meditation, which he allowed me to participate.
Oh, so you saw that then? Okay,
well,
good.
Where he actually allowed me to participate with a class. But I was going to ask you weren't there in that period, were you? In that 2007, 2008, I didn't actually meet you by any chance.
No, you didn't, because I was in Hong Kong from December of 2007 until I think it was through May of 2008.
Oh,
but
right.
That whole time I was training with Ma Ki Fai at the VTAA, not at Chu Shong Tin School.
Oh, right. Okay. I know Nima was there because I met Nima, but
Nima was there.
Nima
was there. Yeah. And I knew Nima. I knew him then. I've known him since then. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so sorry. Anyway, I had to. Yeah, just wanted to clear that up.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what I was learning was the Chu Shong Tin method as taught by Ma Ki Fai, who was a lovely man, really great guy, and really high level at Wing Chun, really very good, and a great teacher. So I was very happy to train under him. And I learned a lot, especially that during that 5 month period, instead of going every year or two for a couple of weeks, living there for 5 straight months and training regularly helped me out a lot. But it was Ma Ki Fai I was training with.
Right. And
Okay.
how do
So
you
then I
feel
go
this
back.
standing meditation? This standing meditation, did you want to elaborate a bit on that? Because I think a lot of people would be very intrigued with the
Well, yeah.
results
Okay.
of how that would
I can
actually
tell you.
work.
I
Sure.
can tell you what Chu Shong Tin said and why he had his students do that for a lengthy period of time before re-including the Wing Chun system in terms of the forms and Chi Sao, etc.
Sure.
There were a period of I don't know how many years, maybe 2 years, where they were doing mostly just a standing meditation. Sometimes they'd do Sui Nim Tao, etc., but mostly the standing meditation. That's my understanding. And what he said was that what happened was he came into the class one night. I don't know what year it was. It might have been 2005, 2006. Okay. And he said, I'm going to change what I'm doing, my teaching. He goes, I realized that when moved, I moved from the back of my brain, what he called the Nim Tao. Okay.
Okay.
And so he thought it was crucial if he could get his students to do what he could do, that they had to access and move from that part of the brain instead of like the prefrontal cortex where analytical thought takes place. If I were to say to you, what's 15 times 7, when you're figuring it out in your head, it's this part of your brain you're using,
Yeah.
not this one. Okay. So he said, in order to access that, he felt the best way to do it would be to do the standing meditation so that you could clear up any blockages up through the spine, to raise energy up from the base of the spine, through the spine to the crown of the head, to reach that part of the brain, to be able to use your Nim Tao. That's what he said. Okay. So that's why he had people do that. And some people achieved it to one degree or another. A lot of people didn't. Some people did. All with his help. He would touch people. He would touch their spines. He would use his fingers like this on their vertebrae, try to get them to clear up any tension or blockage, to raise energy up. It's some people say, and it might very well be the case, that it's akin to um, Kundalini yoga, where you raise energy up through the spine to the crown of the head. Okay, um, so that was his reason for changing his teaching, and that's why he was doing that when you were there with his students. Okay, okay. I personally, I have my own views, just like you have yours, and everybody has their own. Okay, I'm not a follower of individuals. I don't care what other people do. I have to be in charge of my own Wing
Sure.
Chun. Okay.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that other people don't have valuable insights and lessons to teach me. That's obviously the case. But at the end of the day, it has to be you. Okay.
Sure.
So my own feeling is that I don't find that the standing meditation is that helpful. But be that as it may, that's what he was doing. Okay. Um,
But
in any
it
event,
obviously worked for him though, and it worked very well for him
I,
because
I can elaborate on that. Okay. In the context of Sui Nim Tao practice,
yes.
my the Chu Shong Tin's Sui Nim Tao practice, what he did for himself, the way he developed it by following Ip Man's instructions when he began his lessons under Ip Man.
Okay.
His Sui Nim Tao practice accomplished what he was trying to get his students to do in the standing meditation. So I would say, and it's just my view, that the quote unquote proper method of Sui Nim Tao practice will achieve what the standing meditation is meant to achieve anyway. Okay. And I can elaborate on that because it's important. But so I think what I should do is just share with you um, the method of Wing Chun that I practice, attributing credit, of course, to my sources for that method. And I should just be more specific and clear about that method. And a lot of your questions will be answered in my explanations of what it is that I'm doing and teaching and why. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Because everybody uses similar instructions, verbal descriptions in the Wing Chun world. Things like don't use force against force, stand up straight, keep the proper alignment. And a lot of people, of course, also include ideas like the importance of the mind, intention, ideas. Okay. In fact, Chu Shong Tin said that the real meaning of the name of the first form, Sui Nim Tao, which means, as you're well aware, little or small idea in the head. It's not the Tao like way. It's Tao, T-A-U, which means head in Cantonese. Okay. So Su is little, Nim is idea, and Tao is head. So little idea. Okay. That Chu Shong Tin said the meaning of that form is to learn how to use idea to move. And people say things like that. Fine. But you can say something that's accurate, but that doesn't mean you understand it in an accurate way, let alone can do it in a proper way. Proper simply means that it's more effective. Okay. So, because at the end of the day, that has to be the test. How effective is it? So, okay. So I'll just describe the method. And I'm telling you right up front, my understanding and practice and teaching of this specific method, that's my understanding of Chu Shong Tin's method of Wing Chun Kung Fu. And it comes from very limited experience with Chu Shong Tin, but a lot of experience with Maki 5, who's one of his top students and teaches here in Hong Kong. And my experience in person with Marty Anderson, and also hours and hours and hours and years of discussions that I've had with Marty. He's been very open and generous with his sharing of this way of doing Wing Chun, which is Chu Shong Tin's way, with me. Okay. So here's the method. Everybody talks about the stance, the Wing Chun stance. Okay. The importance of the stance. Everybody, you go to a new Wing Chun school, what's the first thing I teach you? How to stand. Okay. The stance obviously is nothing other than your body's relationship to the ground. That's what a stance is. Okay. And different Wing Chun lineages stand differently. Some have more of the pigeon-toed Yiji Kim Young Ma. Most people, if you actually look at how they're standing, their knees are in front of the pelvis. Okay. And they tip their pelvis. Okay. And they use kind of like a wedging of the lower body into the ground to provide support for oncoming force, okay, and to issue force. So they are anchored to the ground, and they are pushing off the ground to move, okay. And that is a very common method in martial arts across the board, regardless of the system, but it's including most Wing Chun, okay, regardless of the lineage. If you look at Chu Shong Tin and how he really stood, if you look at it carefully, and everybody can do this, you can watch videos of him on YouTube, you can see how he's standing, but you got to know what to look for. What I'm telling you is, and people can disagree with me, but this is me talking, so if you look at him, he's standing straight. His knees are right under his pelvis. They're not in front of it. And his back is flat. His lower back is flat. It's not tucked in or bowed out. It's just straight. Now, he could do that with no problem because he was born with a flat back. So it was easy for him to do that.
Okay.
So that's why when you see how he moves, you can be the judge of this yourself. Whether he's chi-sang with someone, whatever he's doing, he's always just standing there straight, moving around. And his back is straight. And he's completely upright. There's no leaning. He never leans. Okay? Now, that is the stance. When you learn how to stand that way, so then you start your Sui Nim Tao practice. Here's the next important thing. But let me backtrack very briefly. Chu Shong Tin said, he told everybody, when he started learning from Ip Man gave him a set of simple instructions that he followed to the letter. And the instructions were, stand up straight, rise up, have forward intention, and do Sui Nim Tao, and use no force. That's what he told him. That was it. And Chu Shong Tin made a conscious decision to do that and nothing but that. And he did that for at least 2 years, hours every day for 2 years. Stand up straight, have forward intention, rise up, whatever that meant, and go through the motions of the form, but use no force. Now everybody's told that. Many people are told that. All of Chu Shong Tin's students are told that. Okay, and everybody's told not to use force. But many Wing Chun people are told that, right? Okay. So fine, but what does it mean in terms of putting it into practice? This is very subtle, but it's crucial, really, really important. Okay, what does it mean to not use force? Well, if you ask most people, what are they going to say? Don't use muscle tension. Don't use muscle contraction. Don't squeeze when you're coming out in Tansao or any other motion. Don't do this and move. Okay. So okay. So people go, okay. So they learn how to rotate their joints freely. They relax more. Everybody talks about the importance of being relaxed, feng song in Cantonese, in Tai Chi, song. Okay. So they stand there and they go through the motions of the form, and they don't use muscle tension. They're not tense when they're moving. So they think they're not using force. That's what I thought. They're still using force. Why? Because they're moving their hand. Well, obviously, they're doing the form. They're moving their hand. But the import is they're thinking of moving their hand. They're pushing their hand out. If I tell you now, just show me the motion of your punch. Go ahead and do it. Just do it. Show me the motion of your punch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So probably I can't. Okay, fine. So I can't speak for you, but probably what's in your mind when you complied with my request to show me your punch is you're moving your hand. You're going to punch. Mm-hmm. Now you might not be using force in the sense of muscle contraction or tension, but your mind is still occupied with the idea of moving your hand out in a punch. That's what people do. Okay. That is a form of force. That's a form of mental force and physical force to move that way, even without the muscle contraction. And that's what everybody in his own lineage is doing. Not everybody, but most. This is based on my own personal opinion and experience, for what it's worth. So what does it truly mean to use no force? Now we're getting to the heart of the matter, okay? And this is the heart of Chu Shong Tin method, at least according to what I get from Marty, from Sifu Ma, and my own understanding, for what it's worth. It all has to do with rotation of the center of mass. So you put your mind in the center of mass. When you start practicing the Sui Nim Tao form, when you're standing there, keeping the flat back and the idea of raising up, not stretching, not, pulling anything, just the idea of it. And you intend forward and you start these movements which the form consists of, you, with continued practice of doing that, you'll find your center. Over time, you will find your center. What does it mean to find your center? It means your mind can go there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So once you find your center, once you can place your mind in your center of mass, which is obviously in humans, it's in what is commonly referred to as the Dantian, right?
Yep.
Then you need to rotate it. That's an idea. Okay? You can give instructions to anybody. Put your mind in your center and rotate it. Okay, fine. How do I do that? Well, you tell yourself to do it. You pretend you already know how. You give yourself that idea. That's an idea. So you're using idea to move. You're using idea to move what? To rotate the center, which is in your core, in your Dantian. Okay?
Okay.
Now, that's where your mind has to stay. This is not an easy thing to do. It has to stay and never leave. Marty told me Chu Shong Tin was by far and away the best martial artist he'd ever met in his life. And Marty met a lot of people because Marty would touch hands with anybody. And Marty was really highly skilled. And when he trained with Chu Shong Tin in the 70s, he would chi sao with Chu Shong Tin every night, all the time, for years. That's what they would do. Unlike the last 15 years or so of Chu Shong Tin's teaching, when he was older, he didn't chi sao with everybody all the time as his training method. He would talk to people. He'd come by. You can see it in videos. And he would help them relax. He'd touch their shoulder. He'd manipulate them. He would show them how to do what it felt like to do when he did it. And then he'd try to get them to do it properly. And he would talk about things like the center of mass and to open the joints and to rotate the joints and to move without force. But he didn't chi sao with everybody all the time. In fact, very seldom. But when Marty was there, he did. So Marty got a lot of hands-on. And Marty said, this guy was unbelievably good. His power was unbelievable. And that's Marty saying that. Marty, who could effortlessly throw me around, okay? And he said he realized he didn't speak Cantonese and Chu Shong Tin didn't speak English. So the way Marty learned how to do this stuff was by watching very carefully how Chu Shong Tin stood and moved. And also, of course, experiencing it hands-on all the time. And he realized that Chu Shong Tin never moved anything without his center moving. That's the rotation. He moves his center by rotating it. And it's an important distinction I'm going to get to in a minute, if I don't forget, okay?
I'll remind you.
And so he said nothing moved till the center moved. And when the center moves, everything moves and nothing is left behind. That's a simple maxim or phrase, but it's crucial, has crucial importance in the Chu Shong Tin method, okay? So what does that mean? It means you don't move anything without the center moving first. The center is the engine. Now, people are told that. I was told that. I'm training with Sifu Ma starting in December of 2007, and he's always telling me, John, body, use your body, move your body, okay? Because if you want, you can substitute body for center.
Okay.
So, okay. So he's basically instructing me, move your torso, okay? Your body. So that's what I would do with limited success. Because and so most people, here's the distinction that I was referring to a minute ago that I asked you to remind me if I forget to say it. Most people move their center. They don't let their center move them. Okay? So if I think of my torso, I'm going to move it around. Oh, look, I'm using my center. See what I'm doing? I'm moving my center, you see, to move my hand. Okay? I'm moving my center. I'm throwing my torso through space. And yeah, you could get power doing that. You could get power using any method. You get good at it, you practice it, you get good at it, you can have power, sure. But it's not what Chu Shong Tin was doing, okay? You need to move inside, which is why this internal first. How to do that? It's what I said. The idea of rotating inside, just that idea. What's really going to happen, just to be more specific and hopefully clearer about it, because I know it sounds like, oh, just put your mind in your center and have the idea of rotating inside, but we're not yet rotating outside yet externally. And by internal, the only thing I mean by internal is it's movement you can't see. The only thing I mean by external is this movement you can see. So the idea of rotating inside, you can't see it, you can feel it, nobody can see it. But what is really happening? Well, what's really happening is the large core muscle groups, your glutes, your hamstrings, and the psoas group of muscles are activated and they're working. They're stretching, they're contracting, they're working.
Okay.
In physics, work means movement. Movement is work. So when I say they're working, I mean they're moving. You got to use them. So when people go, oh, I don't use muscle in my Chu Shong Tin method, that's bullshit. Okay? You're using muscle. You're just using them in a different way than the contracting tension type of use. Your muscles are more eccentric, elongated, rather than concentric, which is contracting.
Oh.
Sometimes they do contract, but you are using muscles. So by activating and allowing them to work, those core muscle groups, the glutes, the hamstrings, and the psoas, you are, first of all, connecting the upper and lower body. That's what the psoas does. Okay.
So I'm not sure what the psoas is. I'm lost in interpretation.
Okay. People can look it up and see a diagram of this. No problem. Just Google it. But the psoas is a group of muscles that basically connect the low spine through holes in the pelvis to the top of the femurs. The bones
that's not intercostal. That's not intercostal muscles we're talking about.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So yeah, okay, I'll look it up. Okay.
If it is, it might very well be. I just don't know about that.
Okay.
But I do know what the psoas group is, and it therefore it connects the lower to the upper body.
Okay.
And so when they're activated, it stretches. It's in use. Okay.
Yep.
That's. I'm telling you my view of things. It doesn't mean
I'm just trying to understand. That's all.
I appreciate that. Let me just say this. I'm giving you my view of things. It doesn't mean that other Chu Shong Tin lineage people would necessarily agree with what I'm saying. I'm giving you my view. I want to make sure I qualify that. Okay.
Hey, look, I just looked it up. So yeah, okay, I'm following you now. Cool. I got it.
Okay. So when you activate those muscles to connect the lower to the upper body, that's Taigong. Okay?
Okay.
That's my view. Other people might disagree with me because they think of it as energy. They talk about energy principles.
Right.
I'm talking about physical principles. Okay?
Excellent. Okay, well that connects a lot to that's cool. Excellent. All right. I've got it translated in Italian, but that's cool. Yep. Okay.
Oh, fair enough. So when we return to the practice of Sui Nim Tao, okay, and not using force and what that really means, okay? So you're standing with a flat back, thinking up, not stretching, not using force to raise up, just the idea of up. Intending forward and putting your mind in your center of mass and start rotating. That's activating those muscle groups I just delineated, okay? Now, what's that got to do with doing the Sui Nim Tao form? Because you're using that idea of the center rotation to move your hands. So what happens is this, okay? Think of it this way. Because, okay, let me back up one minute. There's only two ways the human body can move. Like to walk.
Obviously, yep.
To move. To
Yep.
to what's the word? Not locomotive. You know what I'm saying, okay?
Yep.
To move. There's only two ways. And one way, which is how pretty much everybody moves, is they lead with their head. So if you take a student, any of your students, I don't know this, but I'm just conjecture. If you take any of your students and you take your finger and you put it on their nose,
yep.
You don't press, you just put it there, and you tell them to start walking toward you, their nose is going to start to flatten like this. Okay?
Yep.
Because when people walk, they lead with their head. They start leaning their upper body. And then, so they're moving their torso forward, and they have to then take a step to keep a base under themselves so they can keep balanced. Okay? That's how people walk. That's how people move. Okay? That's one way to move. The only other way to move is by rotation. There is no other way than those two. So, how do you move by rotation? How do you move your hand? How do you move your leg? By rotation. Think of it this way. It's like a washing machine. You got the hub, an axis. It starts to spin, right? Right?
Yep.
Back and forth, right? If there's something attached to that, like a wire or whatever, a stick, okay? Like a wooden man. You take a wooden man. It's got a trunk. It's got arms and leg, right?
Yep.
If you could take the trunk of the wooden man and just start twisting it like this, it's going to move the arms and the leg with it.
Yep.
Right? But it moves it in a stiff way because the arms don't articulate on the wooden man. Right. They're stuck, and so is the leg, right? But our arms and legs can articulate because we have joints. So our arms obviously can move in different ways because we got a shoulder, elbow, and wrist joint. And our leg can move in different ways because we got a hip, knee, and ankle joint. Okay? So when you spin the center, if I spin it clockwise, it's going to throw my left hand out and my right hand back, and vice versa. So when I turn the hub clockwise, that's going to happen. When I turn it counterclockwise, that's going to happen. If I let it. I can turn inside and not let the hands move, sure. But if I want to do the form, movements in the form, what I really want to do is use the idea of the center rotating to do every motion.
Yep.
So I'm not, and here's the kicker, I'm not thinking of moving my hand. I'm not pushing my hand out. Whether I use muscular force or no muscular force, I'm not thinking of pushing my hand out. I'm only thinking of rotating my center.
Yep.
And I'm letting my hand go. Ip Man said, and he said this, the arms and legs should move like they're blown by the wind. Okay? You don't push it out. What does it mean? As if they were blown by the wind. You might think of it this way. Let's say there's a strong wind behind you and it blows your arm out, right? You didn't do it. The wind did it. Okay? That's what it means to use no force, because you didn't do it. The wind did it. So you're using your center rotation to move the hand as if it's blown by the wind.
Nice
That's
analogy.
what it means to use no force. That's what it means. But people don't do that. They stand there in their Sui Nim Tao, they go through the motions, they're relaxed, they're released, they're not tensing. So they think they're not using force. But where's their mind? Their mind's not in the center rotating. Their mind is on the movement.
Mm.
That's using some degree of force. The mind has, for the true Chu Shong Tin method, the mind has to be in the center of mass and never leave. And Marty told me the reason Chu Shong Tin was as good as he was because his concentration was always in his center of mass, rotating it. And you couldn't break his concentration. You couldn't break it. Like whatever's going on out here, however fast people are moving, whatever anybody's trying to hit him, whatever, no matter what is happening, his mind never left his center of mass. And when I had Yum Cha with him one time, through an interpreter, he told us, he went like this. He said, I spin inside like a typhoon. And he went like this and pointed to his belly. And when I do, no one can touch me. That's what he said. So what is he actually doing? He keeps his mind in his center of mass, and he employs the idea of rotating, which activates those muscles I referred to, and allow him to throw out his hands and his leg. That's how he steps. If you watch how he steps when he moves around, his center rotates to move his leg. He never leans anywhere. So he always moves in a unified one piece. That means he's always using his full body mass all the time. And he's using it in these fast rotations. So he's like a ball that's always spinning. Okay?
Right.
So he doesn't, so you know how people talk about all the time in many lineages, things like this. Very common, not just in Wing Chun, but in many martial arts systems. We need to connect to our partner. We need to imbalance them. We need to be sensitive. Okay? Very common concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very common goals of most Wing Chun people, right?
Yes.
When you use the true Chu Shong Tin fighting method, not playing Chi Sao, but for real fighting, okay? You don't care what the other guy does. You don't try to take his balance. You're not trying to connect to him. You're not trying to be sensitive. You're just trying to collide with him, with that spinning full mass of that spinning ball.
Mm-hmm.
Bang! That's it. Okay? That's what you're looking to do. You're looking to hit what's closest to you. I spin one way and hit and spin the other way nonstop and hit. And you do that at speed. Bang, 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 that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
So probably 100 years ago, maybe people knew this. Maybe 100 years ago, people knew this. 150 years ago, people knew this. Maybe. Well, I don't know. Nobody knows. And that somebody saw them at some point. They're using the rotation, which throws out the hands left and right at full speed, nonstop. Bang, 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 like that. So what happens? People go, oh, that's chain punching. So chain punching becomes very famous in Wing Chun. And what do people do? A large percentage of Wing Chun people, they do their chain punching like this. It's an arm thing. Maybe on one or two punches, they shift, they do this. None of that is using a rotation of the center of mass.
Mm-hmm.
The true rotation of the center of mass means you're letting your center move you. You're not moving your center. That's a key distinction that most people don't get, in my view anyway. What my response to that is, yeah, look, I am not critical of any other martial art, and I'm not critical of boxing, far from it, okay? Any method of movement can be very effective when people get good at it. There's no doubting that, okay? I would never say that if you do Chu Shong Tin stuff, you're better than some other people who don't do it that way. I would never say that. At the end of the day, it's who's better at what they do. But I'm just clarifying as best I can my understanding of the Chu Shong Tin method of Wing Chun, how he stands, how he moves, and why. Now, when you compare it to boxing, yeah, boxers are really good, as well as karate people as well as Muay Thai people at using body momentum, okay, to power their strikes.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson is one of the best examples. I don't disagree with that, okay? But that doesn't mean he's letting his center move him. He's moving his center. Mike, that's why when you see boxers, right? You see them wind up and hit and hit and hit like that, right?
Yeah.
Muay Thai people, same, right? They're twisting their torso, their waist to hit, their shoulders to hit, right? Full body, yes. From the ground up, yes. But that's the good boxers. That's what they're doing. Bang, right? Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how Chu Shong Tin moved. That's not what he was doing. He's using his full body mass in a different way than boxers use it. Boxers use it, as I've said, by they move their center.
You're saying they're not disconnecting you're saying they're not disconnecting the joints. They're not. You're saying Sigong is more connected as one piece.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No.
Boxers can be connected as one piece, but in that one piece, they're throwing it around through space, twisting it around to hit, and pushing off the ground to do so. Okay? They're anchored to the ground. You know, they push off. If I want to hit with my left hand, I'm going to push off with my left foot into the ground and to throw my hip and shoulder into the hit, right?
Okay.
That's not what Chu Shong Tin does. He's not anchored to the ground. Sometimes they call it floating center, okay? That's why he's free always to move his body like this around through space. He's never stuck on the ground. You never see him like what some Wing Chun people say, never go backwards, or you need to hold your ground. No, why? If you can move your mass as one piece all the time, why shouldn't you be free to move it wherever you need to go? But remember, it's always spinning. So if my hands are being thrown around like by the wind, they're always going to be thrown around. There's going to be a circular component to it.
So
okay?
are you saying
every motion in Sui Nim Tao?
Are you saying that, because I'm trying to understand here, are you saying that at every point of contact, whether it be, let's just presume a point of resistance or a point of impact, you're not grounded? It was possible that Sigong would not be grounded at that point, even if it was for a fraction of a second? Is that what you're saying? That
it depends. It depends what you mean by grounded.
Or touching the ground. It
depends what you mean by grounded.
Touching the ground. Touching the ground.
Of course, of course, he's touching the ground. He's not flying through the air. Yeah.
Yeah,
but he's not bracing off the ground.
He's not bracing off the ground. All right. Okay.
Yeah, he's not engaging his calf muscles to push his feet into the ground to propel his body. He's moving like a diver off a diving board, which is an example Marty gives sometimes. Okay, Marty Anderson.
Okay.
You know, you have to start at your motion. You have to accelerate your body to move.
Sure.
So the initial acceleration is you have to be in contact with the ground to do that. Yes. So you need the ground. But how are you using the ground? It's just that kind of pulse, like a diver. Boing. The diver accelerates off the board.
Yep.
He doesn't brace off the board, right?
Okay.
And the acceleration is greatest as he leaves the board.
Okay.
So here's the difference. Okay, check me out on this. Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm doing my best.
And most. Okay.
Yep.
I know that's fine. A boxer and most martial arts systems, whatever method they're using to strike, I don't care if it's karate or if it's Muay Thai or if it's boxing. Okay, they press their foot into the ground to propel their fist. Let's just put it simply that way. Okay, and they accelerate faster as they go to a greater distance. So the fist is traveling faster as it starts getting closer to you than when it first starts moving. It picks up speed along the way, in other words. Okay?
Okay.
And so that's why distance is crucial for most systems. Because to get their real power, they have to pick up enough speed when they contact you, when they hit you. Okay? That's why if you take a boxer, you can try this. You take any, I don't care who it is, any boxer, and you hold a pad like over a non-sensitive area like your shoulder, and you have a boxer without gloves, just their fist, be like 6 inches or less away from you, from that pad. They're this close. And you tell them to hit that pad as hard as they can. They're not going to have any power. They're just not going to have any power. It's not going to hurt you.
Maybe that was the case 20. I don't know, John. Today's boxers, there's a lot more guys that are more connected with Wing Chun principles. You'd be surprised. George Foreman could do stuff like that.
Well, you might very well be right.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, George Foreman could do stuff like what you're talking about. And he was an old-time boxer. Seriously. I mean, I think what you're saying generally, you need the trampoline. I understand what you're saying about the trampoline, getting speed and stuff like that. But there are a lot of boxers nowadays that, like, if I'm keeping a guard right in front of me, close to a guy, they can shoot punches really fast and powerful at about 10, 15 centimeters from your face. Really, really powerful. I've worked with bouncers that were like really powerful. They'd be up really close to your face and they'd knock you out with one punch at a really close distance. Yeah, really good connective power.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to understand the differences. Maybe I think that generically, if you look at it, sports combat, I think you've got a more valid point because they have to maintain a distance because they're obliged to, and then that way they have to depend more on long distance and speed. But I have seen guys that on the street they can apply really powerful stuff at short distance. That's all. Anyway, we're detracting from the point.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Far be it from me to suggest that nobody can do this stuff. That's not my intention. I'm just saying, in general terms, I told you, I qualified everything I said in the very beginning of this interview. I said, this is my view of things, okay?
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that my view is that most boxers don't have power from 4, 5, 6 inches away, okay? But Chu Shong Tin would, okay?
Yeah.
Marty does. Marty would prove this. Marty would visit boxers. He's trained boxers. Boxers would come to him to learn how to hit harder. They didn't want to learn Wing Chun. They didn't care about any of that. He had a reputation for being able to hit really hard. So some boxers would seek him out and seek coaching. And he would teach them how to move to have a very strong punch. And he did this with like an Olympic boxing coach.
Right.
And they would have pads where they'd fold it over like 6 times and hold it over their shoulder. Big, thick padding. And he'd have the guy hit him when he held the pad and nothing would happen. There's different levels of power, okay? Sure, a Wing Chun person who practices the sandbag, the wall bag, okay?
Yep.
And practices their quote-unquote 1-inch punch over and over, and they stay loose enough, of course, can get quite a bit of power in a short distance. You know, any Wing Chun people with some experience can do that, right?
Sure.
They can do that, right?
Yep.
whether you call it elbow power, whatever you call it. They can do that, right? And no, I don't want to get hit in the face by someone doing that. It's going to hurt. Yeah. I'm not saying you can't, I'm not saying that you can't get power doing that, but you're not going to get the power I'm referring to. If you've never felt somebody do this the way I'm describing, then you just don't know. I know what that sounds like. I don't mean to sound presumptuous, but I have felt Marty hit me through a Hong Kong phone book like that. And I've never felt anybody have that kind of power. It doesn't push you back. It penetrates immediately inside, and I can explain why. And then it's spread out across my chest like a heart attack. And the only thing I could think was, Jesus, if he hit me in the head like that, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
There's no comparison between what that felt like and what when I hold a pad and a Wing Chun guy goes like that. It's night and day. Okay? It's night and day. I'm just basing this on my own personal experience. Doesn't mean everybody has the same or that there aren't people who can't do this. Okay?
Sure.
So,
well, we're on the same team, man, because I started with the same family. So the thing I wanted to ask you, which was really important, because then we're getting away from the questions, what a lot of people get really confused because on the internet you hear so many people talking about physical relaxation, right? And they say, well,
right.
Why the hell do we have to physically relax? Then when we get on the street or we get physically attacked or people aggress us, we get tense or we get scared, etc. So
right.
what's your perspective on the physical relaxation side of it? I mean, obviously I see benefits to it, but we're talking to you. I'd like to know your perspective.
Okay. I just briefly back up a bit to answer your question.
Okay.
When you stand correctly and your mind can be in the center and you have the idea of rotating it nonstop, just a continuous spin, if you will, you'll start to know everywhere in your body at the same time. Or you could say, see your whole body at the same time. You could also say your consciousness is everywhere in your body at the same time. Okay. And when you feel that's a result of your body being connected, which means unified, which means that any one part is connected to every other part. So therefore, nothing moves till the center rotates. And when the center rotates, everything moves and nothing is left behind because you have unified or connected all parts of the body together. It's not a stiff thing. It's not a robotic thing, but it's a connection. Okay. Now, that state, which is a result of what I just described, is your relaxation. It's a form of relaxation. As I'm sure you would agree, it's not a collapsing, it's not a noodling type of relaxation. It's an alive relaxation. It's a release. It's a release of everything, but yet everything has the potential to move with power from the center. So that's the true Wing Chun relaxation.
Okay.
And so when the center rotates, I let it, for example, if I want to punch with my left hand, I let my center rotation, that idea, blow out the left hand like it's blown by the wind. Bang! When that happens, going back to a previous comment I made about acceleration of strikes and so forth, and the difference between this method of Wing Chun and many other systems, including boxing. When you move in the way I just described, the greatest acceleration is when the hand starts to move externally, when it starts to come out. That's your greatest acceleration. Not the opposite, where it starts slower and picks up speed on its way to the target. It's like this. The best analogy I have is like firing a bullet out of a gun. So your dantian, the spinning center, is the trigger of the gun. And when that fires, the hand is the bullet. Bang! Okay? That's how this works. So what happens? That every strike in reality is a collision. So the bullet is fired and it collides with an object, right? And so it's the mass and how fast the mass accelerates that determines the power that's produced. We all know that. It's physics. It's actually mass times acceleration squared is the formula. So using the dantian this way to let the hands fly, if you will, is like firing a bullet. The hand is the bullet. And what happens is it hits what it hits. And when it hits, there's all that kinetic force that's transferred upon contact, immediately penetrating into the target. That's the true 1-inch punch. That's how you can get power from a short distance. Not just by snapping the elbow, okay? Which is what most people do. Yeah, you can hurt someone by just snapping the elbow, sure. I never said you couldn't. But it's not what I'm talking about. If your center is rotating at speed, if you rotate your center at full acceleration, which is a function of idea, you tell yourself to do it, bang, it can move faster than you could snap your fingers and throw the hand out. When it collides with something, all that kinetic force is going to be immediately transferred into the object that you hit. That's the Chu Shong Tin method of Wing Chun. So if you're always spinning, you don't have to connect, you don't have to be sensitive, you don't have to take someone's balance. You walk into them with that spinning action, throwing the hands like I've just described as if they're bullets, back and forth nonstop. And if they hit you, if they're colliding with you, they're immediately spun off. Like if there was a ball spinning constantly and you went out to hit it, you'd spin off, right? So that's what he would do. That's what he meant when he said, I spin inside like a typhoon, and when I do, no one can touch me. He means when people try to hit him and they can't get through, they're just spun away. And if he wanted to hit you, he doesn't care about your balance or sensitivity or anything. He would just fire the bullet and hit what's in front of him. And most of the times, he'd just go right through your guard. Bang! You try to stop that. So people talk about, oh, I have to know you. I have to connect with you, become one with you. I move with you. I let you move me. I yield. All that stuff people talk about is all very well and good. It makes sense intellectually. People can get really good at that, and they can demonstrate it with their students and maybe some other people. None of that is real fighting. None of it. If you're fighting someone who's intent on taking your head off, and you know this better than I do, okay? They're going to be moving at full speed with evil intent. You don't have any time to connect with them. You don't have any time to reach out and then do a technique. There's never going to be any time for that. You need to be able to move at full speed with full power immediately to destroy them. That's it. That's fighting. That's all fighting is. It's nothing else. It's not, I want to take you to the ground. It's not, I want to get you in a joint lock. Yeah, I know, I understand. People get really good at that stuff, and they can use it, especially against anybody who's not really intent to kill them, okay?
Sure.
But if someone really has evil intent and they're moving with power at full speed, you try to apply a joint lock to that, okay? You think that if, and I know that this may be a silly example, but we talk about Mike Tyson. Everybody uses him as a good example for good reason, right? You think if Mike Tyson was in front of you trying to throw a hook punch at you at full speed, that anyone would be able to grab him and apply a joint lock to him? There's no fucking way. It's not possible. You think anybody could throw him?
No, but maybe they could close the energy. Maybe that's possible.
Well, it depends what you mean. Yeah, plenty of people could block his punch or evade it, bob and weave and all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I
but I'm
mean,
talking about.
sure, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Okay.
it's funny. We're talking about this. It's a bit unintentional, but I've got an upcoming podcast with Bas Rutten, and it's going to be one of the
Well,
questions.
wait. It's funny that you mention him because I was actually thinking of him about 20 minutes ago.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
When I, yeah, when I talk about my view anyway of how most martial artists move, how they stand, how they move, etc., compared to the Chu Shong Tin method.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, I don't know any Wing Chun people that move the way Chu Shong Tin moved. Most of his students don't move the way he moved. And I know of no, and Jim Fung didn't move the way he moved. Okay. And his students don't move the way Chu Shong Tin moved. They think they are. They might to some degree, but it's not the same thing. Okay.
I don't try and emulate.
Wait, let me.
Sorry. Carry on.
Let me finish my comment about Bas Rutten. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
When I describe the differences, if I could pick one person that someone could look at that moves similarly, not exactly the same, but has some of the same attributes, I would say it's Bas Rutten.
Oh, really?
And if you listen to yes, and when you listen to him describe and demonstrate, he just put out a video. This one on YouTube came out yesterday. It says something like Bas Rutten is terrifying, something like that.
Okay.
Where he is, it's a lengthy enough. It's a very good video, and he's explaining his methods to, I think it's Jesse Enkamp, somebody like that interviews martial artists all over the place. And Bas Rutten is demonstrating the torso rotation, how he's always using torso rotation. He never moves without rotating. But Bas Rutten is moving his center. His center's not moving him. That's my opinion from watching how he moves. And that's not exactly the same as Chu Shong Tin. Yeah, there are similarities. And Bas Rutten, I mean, you don't need me to say, is really great at what he does.
Yeah. Bloody, he worked hard for it.
Of course.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes the rotational aspect of his martial movement more than anything else. Every strike is a function of rotation, and he says that. But the way he does it is a little different from Chu Shong Tin. But it's close. It's impressive. It's certainly effective. Okay. So so I would recommend anybody look at Bas Rutten.
One of the questions that I will be, talking to Bas about is the fact that I've done so many years of security, and one of the biggest takeaways that I got from our lineage working with Sifu Jim Fung is that we spent so many years that walking our chi sao, right? And that actually was a big help to me with security work, because using chi sao reflexes, working, closing people up, walking, pushing them out, and if they're trying to throw punches, you'd redirect it, still pushing them out, worked a lot. I taught this to the squads of security, and it was really excellent. You could do that passively without hitting people either. Maybe then with other advanced techniques, we could get them into levers and stuff like that. But that was a good way of closing people up. So that was the biggest thing that I've got from our lineage. Yeah. Right. But in that sense there, so if somebody was to throw a punch, I'd walk through them. That was let's say the biggest thing that I got from our lineage. Walking through people and not, sort of like do a die sail punch and stuff. Just walk through them,
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's important to keep your balance when you're walking through them.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with body unity.
And I swear the first times I fell over about 2 times, I think, and then I got out of it. I got out of that habit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I had to learn to stay
Okay.
straight. Yeah, so I learned making mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you operate in the way I'm trying to describe for you, by rotating the center and letting the arms and legs fly out, that means that when you employ the idea of the center's rotation, the hands want to move, the legs want to move. It's
Okay.
just a question of whether you let them or not. Okay. But they feel like they want to go. Okay. It's not you push it out. The center wants to throw them. Okay. The leg wants to go. And so if you pick it up, it's going to go. Okay. So when you walk through people using this method, you are not, the ground is less important because you're not pushing off the ground to propel yourself. You're simply have that initial impulse, and you need the ground for that, like a diver off a diving board.
Okay.
So when the center rotates, you pick up your foot and it goes. Okay. Now, if you watch how Chu Shong Tin walks around when he's qigong with people, that's exactly how he's moving. He's not pushing off the ground to propel himself. That's why they called it a floating center. The whole mass goes. So when I stand there and I put my mind in my center and I tell it to rotate, my hand and my foot want to go. If I let them go, they're going to go. That's why when Chu Shong Tin, one time, he demonstrated to Marty what he called how to fight using Wing Chun. Marty, in those 10 years he was with him in the 70s, never saw him demonstrate this in his classes. He might have, maybe Marty wasn't there, but there was one time when Marty ran out of money and Chu Shong Tin let him sleep at the school. So one time after classes were over, Chu Shong Tin stayed there with an interpreter, and he said to Marty, now I'm going to show you how to fight using Wing Chun. And he told Marty to attack him. And you got to understand, Marty could already fight. Marty was really good. And he had a mindset for it. So when he went to attack him, he wasn't messing around. He wasn't doing one of those polite student things where you throw your hand out and you leave it out there where the guy can do 50 techniques. I mean, nothing like that. He went and he attacked him. He said no matter how he tried to attack him, Chu Shong Tin only did one thing, always. He kicked and he hit with the same side at the same time. Bang. The leg and the hand, same side, same time. Bang. So however Marty attacked him, Chu Shong Tin's leg and arm would collide with him with power. And Marty said it just blew him away. There's nothing he could do. He thought, I can't do anything against this guy. And he watched him.
He didn't do anything else?
He said, that's all he did. That's all he needed to do. Because every contact was powerful and with the leg and the hand simultaneous, with the same side. So Marty asked him, he said, when you kick, do you have to shift your weight to lift up the kicking foot?
Yeah.
Chu Shong Tin said, watch. He said, watch. And he stood in front of Marty and he put all his weight on his right leg. And he lifted up his left foot to show there was no weight in it. And then he kicked Marty with his right leg without shifting his weight. And Marty said he couldn't believe what he was seeing. How come he didn't fall on the ground? He said he made him demonstrate that to the other students the next night because they didn't believe Marty when he told them the story. Marty said that's when he realized the importance of the center of mass. It's like a gyroscope. You know how a gyroscope works?
A little bit. Explain it to me, though.
Okay, so you've got a center that spins.
Yep.
And then you've got an outside part that spins around it.
Okay, yes.
So you got two spinning spheres. And it's on a string. So even when the gyroscope tips over, now it's still balancing and spinning, even perpendicular to the spring instead of on top from the side, right? because it's the spinning that keeps its balance, the constant spinning. So when you learn how to use your center of mass that way, you can kick without shifting your weight. And the kicking leg has the same weight as your other leg. It doesn't become less weight because you picked it off the ground, because you had to put most of your weight in the supporting leg to lift up the kicking leg to move it, which is how most people kick. Because they're operating from being anchored to the ground.
So he didn't shift the leg like that. No, he didn't shift the foot at all. It stayed.
No, he didn't.
Stayed fixed.
Yes, he didn't shift his. He didn't shift his weight into the empty leg to kick with the full leg. No. So you can't do that unless you're letting your center move you. And in order to do that, what Chu Shong Tin said was, you have to use a highly focused mind. The level of focus is laser-like on your center of mass, and it can never leave. As soon as it goes somewhere else, you're not using your center in the same way anymore. Right. You might be twisting your waist. You might be doing a boxing punch the way they move, the way karate people move. And you can get really good at all that. You're not using your center in the same way. You're moving your center's not moving you. I don't know anybody that moves the way Chu Shong Tin moved. I know what that sounds like. I know everybody thinks their teacher's the best, blah, 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 right? I don't care. People can think whatever they want. I have no allegiance in an individual. Chu Shong Tin was not a Wing Chun god to me. He's just a man.
Sure.
Same with Marty Anderson. But when I feel what he can do, and when he explains it to me this way over the years, and when I, to the extent that I'm capable of doing so, practice these methods in my own training and teaching, I get good results. It makes sense to me because of the experience. No, I'm not better at it than other people or anything like that, but it makes sense to me. Or I wouldn't be continuing to try to get better at doing this particular method. I'd be doing something else.
John,
and I don't see anyone else doing it this way.
I have to ask you a favor because I'm running out of battery power, believe it or not. And
sure.
I actually want to carry on with the interview. So we can either carry on if you like, and I put it on pause so I can recharge the battery for about 10 minutes. How do you feel about that? And I can come back.
I can do that. That's fine with me.
You cool with that? Yeah, because I've literally got.
Yeah, I am.
I've literally got 15% left. Oh,
come.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I ran out of power, so yeah. So I've got about a good half an hour left, I reckon.
No problem.
What were we talking about? I think I rudely interrupted you, but unintentionally, because I got a bit excited about talking about center of mass and center of power, and we got a bit off track.
Right.
And then we were talking about gyroscopes. And whilst the battery was charging, I went and looked at an astronaut on YouTube that was using a gyroscope in zero gravity, and I thought that was really cool, you know. But I could see how that related. Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool, and I thought that I could understand how that related to your conversation. Which, by the way, I've got these old VHS cassettes of when Sigung went to the UK and he was teaching there, and he crossed hands with Sifu Samuel Kwok, which I've had the pleasure to do some lessons with, and met him in Russia and whatnot, and London. And yeah, I was pretty impressed how, he was handling that really well, Sigung, and he didn't have too much trouble at all, without disrespecting Sifu. But, we're talking that was 30 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 1996, I think that was. And Sigung didn't seem to have any problems at all. And one of my students said...
I'm not surprised to hear that.
Yeah. One of my students says, Sifu, he's using the elbow. And I said, well, more than anything, look at his center of balance. Look at how well aligned he is. That's impressing me even more because he's not small.
That's why I sent.
Yeah, Samuel Kwok, he's not small.
That's
He's
why I
taller
sent.
than me. He's taller
That's
than
why.
me. Sorry.
That's why I sent you that. That's
Yeah.
that's why I sent you that picture. Right.
Yep.
You got the picture I sent you, right?
Yep.
So it shows his stance. He's just upright. Look at his back. It's a completely flat back.
Yeah.
He's not standing the same way Samuel Kwok is. It's totally different. So when he stands that way, just picture that. Try to picture this in your own body, okay? Try to use your body to picture the following. You're standing the way he's standing. You start spinning the center and let the leg come out. That's how you move your mass as a whole instead of pushing off the ground. That's the major difference. So yeah, you need the ground, but you're not using it in the same way that many other martial artists use it.
Mm.
Now, you asked me a question about intent and mind force, Nim Lik, and internal aspects, right? This is how I view it. You use your mind, as I've said before, to concentrate on your center of mass and rotate it. That's an idea. So that's your mind you're using to do that. It ends up being a physical action, yes, but it's generated from the mind. And when you rotate the center, like a gyroscope, and let the hands and legs fly out to move externally, regardless of what motion you're making, it carries your full mass because you're not anchored to the ground. And so that's the meaning of use of the mind, and that's the meaning of Nim Lik. So Nim is idea, Lik is force, idea power or idea force, mind force. When you have the idea, which is the center rotating, and you allow your body to move as a consequence of that idea, it produces a force. That's mind force.
Okay. Got it.
Some people might think that it's like some mysterious thing where you're using your mind to produce force, and it's almost like a not physical. Like they talk about, I hit you with my chi. No. Okay. No, absolutely not. Your chi is that sense of the physical activity inside of your body. When I said that the idea of the center rotating allows you to see your whole body as one and that everything wants to move, that's your chi. That sense that everything wants to go somewhere, that's your chi. If you put your hand in the air, I mean, it takes some practice like any other skill, of course. But if you put your hand in the air, just to use one example, and now with your hand here, you put all of your attention in your center of mass and picture it starting to rotate. You'll feel a flowing through your arm. Actually, it's your whole body, but I'm using this arm as an example. And it's like that movement through the arm, it makes you feel like your hand wants to go. Your arm wants to move. That's chi, okay? Chu Shong Tin himself said there are different levels of Sui Nim Tao practice. He said the first level is just learning the external movements of the form. If you're going to do a form, you got to learn the movements. Okay. Once you've memorized the movements, and you don't have to think about doing them anymore. Like, where does my hand go? How do you make this shape? Then you can do the movement as a function of idea. So that's what he meant when he said, I just think and it moves by itself. Okay. And then he said the third level is you do the same thing, which is the idea of what's the idea? People, this is my view. People think, oh, the idea is I move my hand like a tansao. The idea is tansao. No, the idea is the rotation of the center, and the hand comes out as if by itself. That's what the meaning of use no force is. So I do the form, I'm moving my arms around, and I don't feel anything except my center rotating. I'm not pushing my arms to do it, to make the external motion. It's happening, obviously, but it's simply a function of the center, action of the center. That's what it means to let the center move you instead of you're moving the center. And that's how Nim Lik is produced. The idea isn't the motion. The idea is the rotation, which leads to the motion.
Cool.
It's difficult to explain. It's hard to talk about. Like any other skill, people have to feel it for themselves. But you got to know what to feel. You have to have the idea. And the idea is center rotation. If you focus strongly enough, highly focused enough on the idea of the center rotating, it will lead to the body connection. It will lead to the chi. It will lead to the movement if you allow the external movement. So if I do what I just described, and I want to take a step forward, say, with my left foot, all I got to do is do what I just described. Put that idea in my center, rotate it, and pick up, and have that idea result in the full body awareness wanting to go somewhere. So that when I pick up my foot, it'll go as if blown by the wind, like Ip Man said. That's Chu Shong Tin's method. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How would you differentiate really listening compared to really focalizing?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so to really listen to something, to be aware of being in tune with your center, or to have a lot of power to focus on something. I'm trying to understand, because a lot of times I get asked, are they similar things, learning to listen or learning to focus? Because if you learn to focus,
it's not listen. Okay.
Because
it's not.
Sorry.
It's here's what I have to say about that. The important distinction is the relationship of your mental activity to your physical action. What I mean is, in order to do what I've described, which is what Chu Shong Tin was doing, if you want to know my view and also Marty Anderson's,
yep.
You can't be using the prefrontal cortex. You can't be talking to yourself. That's why a lot of times I talk about transcendence. You're transcending language. It's like this. Listen to this idea. Again, this comes through Marty Anderson. 70,000 plus years ago, whatever, long time ago, mankind didn't have language. They could communicate, but they couldn't talk to each other. They didn't have words. So their default location of their being, if you will, was their center of mass. Okay. And so the part of the brain that was really operating most actively was the rear part, not the front part, where you analyze and judge and think and talk and the seat of language. So that mankind back then was no different than any animal. They operated naturally from their center of mass.
Okay.
They didn't talk to themselves. And so, like any other animal, they must have had incredible power in their everyday movements as a result, because it's their full mass at play all the time, because they're moving from their center of mass. Their center is moving them.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of the center moving you by its rotation is that you access and are using your full mass at whatever speed you're moving at, and that is how you create the most power. So, but with the advent of language for human being, and every animal does that. There isn't an animal alive in the world that doesn't function that way.
Mm-hmm.
Their default seat of being is their center of mass. If you go and jump on a dog or surprise a cat or any animal, what happens? Their whole body goes bam like that, right? That's why you try to hold a small dog. It's hard to hold them because they're just writhing. Their whole body is moving from the center. They never, it's that maxim I mentioned earlier. Nothing moves till the center moves, and when the center moves, everything moves, and nothing is left behind. So when my center rotates, I pick up my foot, wants to go, it moves. Nothing is left behind. It's not I'm rotating my center, but I'm anchored to the ground and just doing something with my hands. No, everything wants to move. So with the advent of language, mankind started to use more of the prefrontal cortex. And for the last X number of thousands of years, that's how mankind, human beings, operate. So when you're working on your computer or you're doing a task at any job or you're in school or whatever it is you're doing, you're learning a martial art and the teacher tells you your hand has to be here and this is the proper technique and here's how you do it and this is right and this is wrong. That's all talk. That's all words.
Yeah.
That's figuring out how to do things is talk. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I say oftentimes in my kung fu there is no how to, not KNOW how to do it, but NO. There is no how to. You're transcending language.
That's
That's
cool.
what Chu Shong Tin meant when he said you're operating from the rear part of the brain, not the frontal cortex. So so when you're doing that, you're not listening, you're not interpreting, you're not judging, coming back to your question. You're simply, you can't even define what you're doing because you only have one idea
Can I
and it's
interrupt?
not in words. Yeah, please.
I'll elaborate better. We talk about standing meditation, I think, right? So standing
Right.
meditation, isn't that a form of listening, being aware? Because that's what I was trying to get at. Like being aware of these qualities that you're talking about. You know, it confuses me a little bit because being aware, it seems like a form of intelligence, yet aware is also a form of listening. So when you talk about concentration, that seems like something that the frontal cortex would do, and yet you're talking about the rear side, which just seems more animalistic, more instinctive, if that's the right word. So forgive me if it confuses me a little bit, but in a way I understand what you're saying,
Sure.
but I'm just wondering if it's a form of awareness or meditation or that form of listening, and how that's connected to maybe a elevated form of intelligence as well. And being intelligent sort of confuses me because that sort of blocks you at the same time. So I don't know if I'm making myself clear. Not easy to explain what I'm
Yeah, I
saying.
think you are.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I hear you. I think you made yourself very clear.
Oh, cool.
Um, what I have to say is that um, Okay, if you want to use the word intelligence, it's a different type of intelligence.
Okay.
You can't say that animals don't have intelligence, right?
No, I love animals. I've
Animals
got my
have
dog with me.
intelligence.
Come here.
Yeah, okay. Animals have intelligence. It's a different form of intelligence than mankind, but it's a form of intelligence. You can't say they don't have intelligence.
Yeah.
Every animal knows how to operate their own body naturally and automatically. That's a form of intelligence, but it has nothing to do with language. It has nothing to do with them talking to themselves, does it? So in Chu Shong Tin's method of Wing Chun, it's the same. It's akin to an animal's intelligence. You put your mind in your center. You don't talk to yourself. You don't explain how to move the center. You don't figure out what am I supposed to do to rotate my center.
Yeah.
It's just the idea of it by itself. And then you get to know your body in a certain way, like an animal knows its body. Every animal knows its whole body as a whole. They don't have to jump from one paw to another to their spine. They always know their whole body, where it is in space, and how to move it for
Spontaneous.
anything they want to do. Yeah. They don't have to explain it to themselves. They don't have to use language. They don't have to judge it or evaluate it. It's the way that's why we call it default. It's their default way of operating. So that's what Chu Shong Tin tapped into for himself and what he was trying to teach people, but it's not an easy thing, okay? So when I say put your mind in your center of mass and use the idea of its rotation, I don't mean talking to yourself.
No.
I don't mean explaining how it works or why it works or how to do it even. It's just you just have to be there with that singular, it's a singularity. It's one idea. You don't add on ideas on top of it.
Yeah.
It's just one idea, center rotating, and let that move the hand. So
it seems
not an
it seems easy, but it seems easy, but it's so hard at the same time.
Well, it's better to say it's very simple, but it's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple, but it's extremely difficult to do because our mind jumps from one thing to another, and we're always talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
And you have to transcend that in order to do what we're describing. And to do it consistently, you have to do it consistently to use it. Even if I can concentrate on my center of mass and use the idea of rotation to move my hand, like say I'm chi-saiing with you. When you're doing whatever you're doing, my attention's probably going to go to what's going on out here instead of remain in my center.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to keep that level and location of concentration consistently when things are happening. Now, you talked before, this reminded me of something about the idea of relaxation, but in the real world, when the shit hits the fan, you have an adrenaline dump, you tense up, things happen, right? So what about relaxation in the real world, right? Well, here's the thing. If you can put your laser-like focus in your center of mass, and the only idea you have is rotation itself, and that's the only thing that you're doing in terms of your mind, you won't have a fight or flight response. There'll be you bypass that. It doesn't happen because your mind is only on the idea of rotation and center of mass, nothing else. So you're not reacting to things in the same way. You're just rotating and continue to rotate. There's no fear. There's no evaluation. There's no judgment involved. That's a byproduct of doing this method. But like I said, and I know what this sounds like, so sorry everybody who's listening. I don't mean to sound this way, but I'm just being as honest as I can, and no one has to agree with me or believe me. I don't know anybody that does this except for Chu Shong Tin and Marty Anderson. Other people do to a degree, but it's just not completely the same thing. If you look at the way, I don't mean to single anybody out, but you mentioned your first Sifu, Jim Fung.
Yeah.
And I know how highly respected he is in our lineage. And I know everybody who it was his student and grand student in Australia and New Zealand loved the man. And you know, it's not a comment about him personally or anything. And I never met him. I didn't know him. I never felt his hands. But if you watch the way he stands, if you watch, there's videos of him chisang with Chu Shong Tin. Okay? You can
Okay.
see that. He's not standing the same way Chu Shong Tin is, and he's not moving the same way. He's pushing off the ground. He's going back and forth. He's not doing the same thing. And that is one of, supposedly anyway, one of Chu Shong Tin's top students. So even within Chu Shong Tin's own lineage, it's very rare for someone to really be doing what he himself could do and was doing.
I have love for my first family. Regardless, I went with another family, and I'm still very proud of who I went with. And you know, I knew Tony Salia, I knew Graham Kirshner, I knew Karen Armstrong, Diane Sawyer, Instructor Albert, Instructor Neville. The first Neville, who was with Jim Fung, who passed away. And these guys here, they would do like classes and stuff. And a lot of them always talked highly about Su Shong Tin. And, I met Su Shong Tin 3 times, right? I had a chance to press with him. And in the years, and I met Nim Lik, talked with him. I never touched hands with him because I only met him once in Hong Kong. Why not? And maybe I've forgotten a lot of people because there are other people that I met. And Instructor Robert, Tony, who spent a lot of time with Grandmaster Chu Shong Tin. And I listened to all these guys, every one of them. And you're never going to get, you can have one exceptional person and you're never going to get the same person doing the same thing in any lineage. I find that with my own schools. People that I teach something, and supposedly I'm the best in my school, and I teach the other students. And I've got students that have been with me for 23 years, and I think, Jesus, they move nothing like me, and yet they teach students their lines who are completely different to the ones that don't move like me. So it makes me wonder, maybe physically they don't move the same, but the teachings have a value. The verbal teachings, what's written down, the concepts, the mental concepts, because sometimes maybe a teacher cannot physically move like the Grandmaster, but, the way he teaches has to be held in high regard, because I've seen it myself. I've seen people who cannot physically do what the master does, but has the capability of teaching what the master does. And that's very important too. So Sifu Jim, maybe he didn't do this, but he would always tell us exactly what Sigung wanted. And the same with the other guys. A lot of guys would say, I'm not doing it like Sigung does, but Sigung wants this, and they would correct us. So even though they weren't perfect themselves, and
fair enough.
And we're always trying to improve that quality. Personally, I can say with what I learned from Sigung's teachings, which fundamentally are from Grandmaster Yip Man School. And another thing, do you know Bill Dowding?
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bill Dowding told me.
I spent time with him twice.
Yeah, I don't think Bill will mind me saying this publicly, but he told me the same story about Grandmaster Yip Man doing the kick on the wooden dummy without shifting his weight. Exactly, almost the same thing you said about Su Shong Tin. So imagine how precise he was in following Grandmaster Yip Man's teachings. So I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's important what gets passed down. And sometimes we have physical disabilities. I've got a student who's a wreck physically, and he's my oldest student. Very proud of him. But he's produced guys who give my personal students a hard time. with his physical incapabilities. You know. Anyway, I just wanted to.
Okay. Listen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Listen.
and last thing I was going to say, and I think that I've used
Yeah.
Sigung's teachings in life-threatening situations, in riots, in stuff, in very dangerous situations, and so I'm grateful for the things I've learned from our first lineage and other families, obviously.
I understand. Listen.
I'll shut up
I
now.
didn't say. Yeah. I, I didn't say that there wasn't a value to doing things a different way.
Okay.
If you ask any Chu Shong Tin, like people in that lineage that teach, or even students, if you ask any of them, and I've never heard one exception to this,
Mm.
no one will ever say, this is a better way. They just say it's different.
Yeah.
Of course, they think it's a better way, or they wouldn't be doing it this way. But they would never say that, okay? Just like Wang Shanlong people, they may not say, oh, their method of Wing Chun is better than every other lineage. But they think that, or they wouldn't be doing it that way, okay?
I think that's
So,
fair of every
so,
lineage. I think every
oh,
lineage
yeah,
probably
that's
thinks
my,
like that.
Paul, that's my point, okay? So, what I'm saying to you is this.
Yeah.
I didn't say that there wasn't that the intellectual or uh, analytical side of it doesn't have value and play a role. It does, and I never said it didn't. And I also didn't say that if people do things differently, then it's no good. I never said that.
Fair
I
enough.
said you get good. I said you get good at what you practice. All I'm you asked me to do this interview to talk about Chu Shong Tin
Absolutely.
and my experience.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is I'm explaining my opinion, my perspective of what Chu Shong Tin Wing Chun is all about and why. And I'm simply remarking that even in his own lineage, it would be very rare to find someone that's doing it really, really like he was doing it.
Yeah.
It's not everybody says things like this. Listen, everybody says things like, oh, it's my Wing Chun. My Wing Chun is different from your Wing Chun. I have to express myself. It's like, yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean anything. Okay. That's just a cop out. Okay. You're teaching a system, you're teaching a method. Yeah. Within performing that method, there are various degrees of competence to perform that method within that method. So some people are better at it than others. Yes. But all I'm saying is that when I watch how people stand and move, it would be almost impossible to find someone that's doing it just like Chu Shong Tin. They're going to be leaning, they're going to be pushing off the ground more than he does, they're going to be leaning a little bit more than he does, even if it's difficult to see at first. They're not necessarily going to be aware of their center rotating. They
Right.
may twist their torso around to move their mass, but that's different from an internal rotation of your center of mass, as I've described it before. So, and their concentration is not going to necessarily be on their center and rotating it like I've described. Their concentration is going to be all over the place. And that's within our own lineage, let alone other Wing Chun people. So I'm not denigrating other people. I know a lot of Wing Chun people who could beat me up in a fight, no problem. I have no problem with that. I'm not a fighter. I never claimed to be. I never worked in a bar. I wasn't a bouncer. I was a lawyer and an artist. I don't have that experience. All I'm saying is this was his method.
Okay. But
And
you don't think
and
that
and
it's his
it's
method because it's his method?
yeah.
You don't think that maybe it's his method because it's only his method? Like
No.
you say,
It's his
Like
He learned it from Ip Man.
all right, but at one stage,
You said yourself, Bill Dowd. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I'm listening.
Okay. When you I do know Bill Dowding. I first met him in '99 when we went to the first World Wing Chun conference in Hong Kong,
Okay,
and we all went to mainly in China together. And he and I chisad with each other in a demonstration in Fosan in front of everybody there.
okay.
So I've known Bill for like 28 years
28 years.
almost.
Okay.
And and when he said that Ip Man demonstrated on the wooden dummy kicking without shifting his weight. Yeah,
Yep.
Ip Man could do this. Chu Shong Tin learned it from him. But don't forget, Ip Man called Chu Shong Tin the king of Sui Nim Tao. Why? Because Sui Nim Tao, and Ip Man knew this, involved putting your mind in your center, doing all the things I've described in this interview, to move as if you're blown by the wind. And Chu Shong Tin did it better than anybody. And that's why he called him the king of Sui Nim Tao.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not just some method that Chu Shong Tin made up. Okay. No, this was Chu Shong Tin's kung fu. Yes. Okay. Which he learned from Ip Man, and he developed on his own, like everybody has to do. And he tried to teach it to his students. He didn't hold back. He wanted them to learn it, but no one even came close to getting as good as he was. And there isn't one person that would disagree with that. You can take the best people, the most accomplished fighters that Chu Shong Tin ever trained, and there isn't one of them who wouldn't say that their skill can't compare to their Sifu. So
this is the
that
problem
doesn't mean that
this is the problem though when people talk about their lineage, because everybody has a different perspective from the different students that were under Grandmaster Yip Man.
well, that's quite true, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
When and Marty, I mean, I keep bringing up Marty, and he's not a god either. It's only to illustrate a point, okay?
Yeah.
He was there, and he was there the decade of the 1970s. He knew all these people. He saw how they moved. He touched hands with many of them, okay? And so he knew a lot of Ip Man's students, direct students. And he goes, none of them moved like Chu Shong Tin. None of them stood like him. None of them moved like him. None of them. None of them. That doesn't mean that some of those people weren't really great at what they did and couldn't fight really well. Of course, I'm sure they could. That's not my point.
Right.
But they weren't doing what he was doing.
It's interesting debates, very interesting debates, because then one will say, "Oh yeah, well, could he fight?" The other one will say, "Who cares about internal?" And then I've heard these conversations about 3,000 times. So one forgets to look at the art,
Right.
the process and the growth of the art, and how it was, where it derived and how it was, and they look excessively at one side and not the other.
When you, again, since we're just talking in general terms, when you look at, in general terms, Wing Chun across the board,
Yeah.
not necessarily in every school. I don't know every school, but I know a lot of lineages. I've been in Hong Kong for years. I meet a lot of people. And like you, I see the YouTube stuff. I see what people do, okay?
Yeah.
If you go to most Wing Chun schools, if not all of them, the focus by and large, not 100%, but to quite a large degree, is on how to do techniques.
Yeah.
So most schools have drills that they do, lapdar, tandar, gandar, right? They have drills. They develop muscle memory through drills. They talk about the importance of angling and positioning and speed. Okay, a lot of Wing Chun is technique related, developing techniques, flowing from one technique to another. Okay, to be effective. to deal with force, to turn it out of the way, to attack back, to create openings on the center line. All the typical Wing Chun stuff, right?
Yep.
Well, Chu Shong Tin said, when you know how to set up your body condition, like I'm talking about, and use the center like I'm talking about, there are no techniques. Technique doesn't matter. That's why he said, it just as a side example of that point, positioning doesn't matter. You know how positioning is so important in most Wing Chun schools around the world? If you're in a futsal, if your elbow is out, they call that fei zhong, flying elbow. Okay? And that would be a big mistake because then you've got a line open for someone to attack through, right? So you're taught your futsal has to be like toward, not necessarily on the center, but going to the center, right? You know what I mean? In Chu Shong Tin's Wing Chun, it makes no difference. I can have my futsal like this. You see my elbow? Are you looking?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have to be like this. It could be way out here. You could be underneath trying to come in.
Yeah.
But if I'm using my center rotation, you're not going to be able to come in. So his Wing Chun is different from most Wing Chun in certain respects. Positioning doesn't become important. Techniques don't become important. Accessing your center of mass through the method that I've described and moving it as a whole at speed is the essence of the Chu Shong Tin method of Wing Chun. And just because other people talk about their body mass and speed and all the other things they talk about doesn't mean they're doing it the way he's doing it. And that's the difference between, as I keep repeating, they're moving their center. They're not letting their center move them. That's a big difference. One of the first things I told you in this interview was that is a huge distinction and an important one. And that's the reason for it.
Right.
Because everybody uses the same ideas, but that doesn't mean they're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that what they're doing, even if it's different, fine. I'm sure that many people get really good at that and they can use it. I have no doubt. But I'm talking about Chu Shong Tin method. Exactly. And I never said that if you use his method, you're going to automatically be a better fighter than someone who does a different method. I never said that. I don't believe that.
So we're only talking about the differences in lineages and training methods and, well, philosophies, ways of thinking, all these things.
Right. Any other questions?
I've run out of time.
Oh, no problem. Okay, fair enough.
And no, I think we've covered everything, mate. I'll just have a quick look. I need my glasses.
Okay.
I reckon you've covered everything. Absolutely everything. What can I say, mate? Thanks for your patience, because I know I'm not an easy person to that. I mean, I listen to everything and I try and absorb everything you're saying, and try and respond, because it's not easy. But it was great. It was fascinating to talk to you, mate, and I hope I can hassle you again in the future, which I will. And I'll edit all this.
No problem.
I'll edit all this and get it online soon. I was going to say, you're right with me putting some footage with Sigung every now and then whilst you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, you can do whatever you want to do. I'm fine with whatever you're going to do. And I just want to say that I appreciate this opportunity. I'm grateful that you contacted me and had the interest to do this. And and the only thing I wanted to ask you is, when you finish doing it, whatever you produce, You put it on. You're going to put it on YouTube, right?
If you want me to, yeah.
You're frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear my question?
Yeah, if you want me to put it on YouTube.
No, yeah. See, all I'm asking is, when you have your finished product, you do it any way you want to do it, and when it's done, I would just like to have it and see it. If you could send it to me on a link, send
Yeah.
it to me. Either link it to a Facebook message,
Yeah.
or put it like didn't you put? I'm asking. Didn't you put your the thing that you did with Emin Bostepi? Was that on YouTube or was that just on Facebook?
I did both.
Okay, so put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And send me a link to it so I can see it and I can tell people about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it everywhere if you want.